Hello and welcome to Crucible of Worlds for more dedicated legacy action. Today we have an interesting donation deck. It's a sort of Staxxy type deck and we're going to be doing some relatively aggressive things alongside it. So, what are we trying to accomplish? We are trying to deploy things like Spheres of Resistance and Lodestone Golem alongside Chalice of the Void and our Wasteland Crucible package to effectively shut down our opponent's ability to play the game. And whilst that's happening, we're also trying to beat them down with the aforementioned Lodestone Golem alongside Crystalline Giant. This is an interesting card. I'm not necessarily sure how good it is, but it's a fun one, and that's what we're all about sometimes, right? So this is a guy that gains a keyword or a +1/+1 counter, and you can gain one of each keyword and +1/+1 counter. And yeah, so you just end up with a large guy, a large-ish guy that's got some useful abilities that you can kind of tune to what you need at the time. So to make all this stuff happen, we've got a mana base that's got a lot of colourless lands because we're a colourless deck. So we got 4 Ancient Tombs, 4 City of Traitors, so we can power out our Sphere of Resistance super early. We've got 4 Cloudpost and 4 Glimmerpost, which can sometimes work as soul lands, so we might as well have those. We've got 4 Mycosynth Gardens. The idea is we're going to be copying Sphere of Resistances and just make it so our opponent doesn't get to play the game. We have 1 Thespian stage, which can be another Cloudpost if necessary, and sometimes has some other useful text alongside it. We have a Tabernacle. This doesn't tap for mana, but if we're already taxing our opponent's mana, it's just going to keep them out of the game permanently, as they can't keep any creatures on the board. We've got a Blast Zone, which can blow up various bits and pieces, and we have the Wastelands that we mentioned before. And we have a one-off Ghost Quarter. So when we get them properly in the lock with the Crucible of Worlds, we can just keep redeploying the Ghost Quarter and strip our opponent from every last resource they have. So yeah, we're griefing people a bit today and it should be fun. We also have Tangle Wire, which is one that you haven't seen for a while, I don't think. This is a fading artifact where each player has to tap a bunch of untapped permanents each turn. So this is going to, again, slow our opponent down so they can't actually deploy anything and give us room to hopefully get them in the lock. This is one of those symmetrical cards that isn't very symmetrical because we get to tick down the counter and then activate the ability on it, so we end up tapping down less permanents than our opponent, and we get to tap the Tangle Wire itself. So that's a pretty interesting one. In order to actually close out the game though, we've got these 4 Karn the Great Creator, which can go and find us a bunch of stuff from our sideboard. Also shuts down artifact mana sources our opponents may have, which could be a way they could try and get out of this lock, so we got that. We have 1 Ugin, which kind of counteracts the spheres on our own stuff a bit, as well as giving us a little bit of removal, potential win conditions, that sort of thing. We have a one-of God-Pharaoh statue, which is another pretty cool thing. It's a one-sided double Sphere of Resistance, right? If we get this in play with any of our other stuff, our opponent shouldn't really be able to play anything. And it does slowly kill your opponent. That's it for the main deck. Let's have a quick look at our Karn sideboard. We've got some interesting ones, right? So we've got the standard liquid metal coating, ensnaring bridge, Mycosynth lattice, the things you'd expect. We have a stone brain for some combo decks so we can try and deal with that way. We have a Crucible because Crucible is quite important to our package. I'd like to be able to have more access to more of them. We've got a Sorcerer's Spyglass. Sometimes Pithing Needles is going to be useful. We're going to have Chalice on 1 a lot of the time, so we're not going to be playing Pithing Needles. We have Tormod's Crypt. This is the best one from the sideboard because you play your Karn, you minus it, you get the Tormod's Crypt, and you can play it straight away. You don't have to wait for the mana to deploy it. And then we get to some more interesting ones. So we have a Winter Orb, just to really hammer home the fact that we're trying to stop our opponent from playing the game. We have a Torpor Orb, which is quite a useful one for decks that might be trying to break out of this using creatures that come into play effects. We have another God-Pharaoh statue, because when we do want this, we want to be able to drop it. I'm not sure how often we're going to have this, and we should probably just be getting the lattice instead of this, but this does actually win us the game effectively. So it might take a while. This would probably be Walking Ballista, to be honest, but it much of a muchness at that point, right? When the game's already locked up by that point. Then we have a Cityscape Leveler. So when you cast a spell, and whenever it attacks, destroy up to 1 target non-land permanent. Its controller creates a tapped Power Stone token. So if we're getting this with Karn, the Power Stone tokens will never do anything anyway. And the idea is we just have a guy that can blow up some problem permanents and also just clock our opponent quite quickly. Then we have some cards that we're going to be boarding in rather than fetching with our Karn. And that's basically just 4 Welding Jar, because we want to make sure that our stuff doesn't get destroyed. Now, this doesn't help versus Prismatic Ending, but it will help against things like Meltdown, Outland Liberator, Seeds of Innocence, that sort of thing. It only gets to save one thing, but usually it will save the most important thing, and that's probably going to be enough. And that's it for this deck, really. The games are going to be relatively quick, I would imagine, with this deck, unless our opponent wants to play out while we've completely locked them. But I reckon we should be stomping around pretty sharpish. And I'm looking forward to seeing Crystalline Giant do something. This is a card I really enjoyed in the limited format. It was quite fun. Alright. Before we jump in, like, comment, subscribe. These things you can do and they help me out and they don't cost you anything. And if you do have a little bit of money you want to throw my way, why not contact me through the Discord below and set up a donation deck. Alternatively, you can go to my Patreon and support me there in various tiers with various benefits. Alright, let's play some Legacy with this cool mono-brown Staxxy type deck. Right, we're on the play for round 1, which is a pretty good place to be. We can't actually deploy our cool things, but we can do a turn 2 Chalice or a turn 2 Trinisphere. Is this good enough? Are we supposed to be... I think we can mulligan and get a similar but better hand. So I think we're going to mulligan. We do need some fast mana going on here. Alright, this is a better hand. I'll take this. We don't actually have anything to go with our Crucible yet. So I think this is going to be the one that we put back right now. Classic opening play of Ancient Tomb, Chalice of the Void. Alright, we're in with the Chalice. That's a good start. It's our opponent's turn. Our opponent has an Ancient Tomb into Painter's Servant. Okay. Mishra's Bauble. So we could be looking at like the 8-casty Painter hybrid deck. This Chalice on 0 would have been a whole lot better than a Chalice on 1. It does shut off them playing the Grindstone for a bit. But that's not necessarily that exciting. Okay, we will deploy this Mycosynth Gardens, I think, into our little friend, Crystalline Giant. Right, so we've got lifelink on this one now. Sorry, I don't know if I mentioned at the top, this gives you random abilities. A Thoughtcast, yep. Tangle Wire is going to be a bit awkward when our opponent's got so many permanents, but we'll see. A Painter's Servant, you say. Karn, the Great Creator. This is a pretty good one to try and resolve. Do I think it's going to resolve? A lot of our other stuff has been resolving. Let's jam this. Are we supposed to play the Karn, or are we supposed to play the Tangle Wire and mess with our opponent's permanents a bit? They're going to find something like an Otawara to bounce our Chalice. They can deploy their thing, but that's probably not going to matter that much. So if we deploy Tangle Wire, that's 3. Next turn we tap this Tangle Wire on one of the lands, and then we can deploy Karn next turn. I think I will go for the Tangle Wire here. This is more to bait a potential Force of Will, because I don't want our Karn. There we go. So we got the Force of Will out. Let's see what ability this gets this time. Trample. Alright. A Lodestone Golem. Play a Blast Zone. I think we'll go to see what we get here. +1/+1 counter. I'd rather save this to keep our guy alive. Let's try the Karn now. Their opponent's only got 1 card in hand. This could be Metallic Rebuke is the only problem. But let's try it. It is the Metallic Rebuke, eh? So what we can do here is shut off all their 0 drops by copying our Chalice. So we've shut off 0 drops and 1 drops. Now our opponent's deck obviously has a lot of 0s in. And if I'd have known what they were playing, I would have done the Chalice first on 0. Right, we're now going to just be trying to beat down with the Giant. Alright, we draw another one of those. That's pretty tasty. What ability do we get this time? Trample, Reach. Sure, I think we will just start attacking now. And I think we're just going to put this one and try and get the game over and done with. No. I think we will play the Karn here. Alright, our opponent's scooping into the Karn there. That worked out alright. We missed 1 attack step with our Crystalline Giant. I went to pass priority through the ability, and I passed through my entire attack step, which sometimes happens. Alright, I think we're right to play the Tangle Wire and try and force out that Force of Will. So it all came up alright for us. Now, the question we have here is, do we want any of our cards in the main deck? So, Karn is incredible in this matchup. I don't really think we have much else to do here. This isn't the matchup where we want Welding Jars. Our opponent's main interaction is going to be Hurkyl's Recall rather than something like meltdown-y type effects. So I think we're just going to run it back here. We could bring in the Spyglass as a thing to draw rather than have the Karn, but I'm not sure that's where I want to be. I imagine our opponent's got a lot more counter magic in for this game. We can make a turn to God-Pharaoh statue. Is that a thing we want to do? Maybe? Wish this was an ancient tomb, but we'll see. Alright, an island. And a lotus petal. And a mistress bauble. And a shadow spear. And a crack and a bauble. A sphere of resistance. I don't hate that as a thing to do. But it doesn't really help our Grim Monolith plan here. Alright. They were F6 through our turn, so if we can just jam the God-Pharaoh statue next turn, we should be alright. There's an Urza's Saga. Alright. We have to Wasteland that, but we can do both these things. Let's play a Grim Monolith. Play a God-Pharaoh statue. Let's Wasteland our opponent. Alright. We cast a turn 2 God-Pharaoh statue and Wastelanded our opponent. Pretty nice, pretty quick. Alright. Let's go to round 2. I just realised I've been on mute for the beginning for this round, I think. So that's pretty annoying. Yes, hopefully it's been relatively clear what I've been doing. But let's see how this pans out. A Kappa Cannoneer. This is a pretty annoying threat for us to deal with. Our Tangle Wire is not going to get there either. So yes, could be tricky here. So this needs flying, needs lifelink, needs a bunch of stuff for us. Another Sphere of Resistance. That's probably not what we need, is it? Tangle Wire is kind of free for us because we have these 2 permanents and Tangle Wire. But it will cost us life from this Ancient Tomb. Is that worth it? I don't think our opponent's going to play enough stuff to kill us in one turn. We can't attack. I think we are losing this one. Slipped away from us. So our opponent is going to make a construct. They're going to put the Shadow Spear on the Cannoneer. Bash us for 7. So you can tap the construct and the Emery and the Thought Monitor and the Shadow Spear. And that leaves them with enough mana to equip Shadow Spear. Bash us for 7. They're unlikely to be able to play anything else this turn. Although they are getting another artifact into play actually. So this puts them up to 8 damage. So what would they need here? Oh, I guess they got the Flyer and the Thought Monitor, right? We should be dead here entirely, right? Right, they got the bounce there. This is 7, 8, 9. Yeah, we're just dead. Yeah, this feels tricky, to be honest. The Painter matchup is more reliant on activated abilities and things. Whereas this matchup is... they can vomit a load of stuff out. And we lost game 1, which was a bit awkward. And then their affinity kind of ignores our spheres in a lot of ways. It just means they have to have 1 more artifact for it, because they've already got cost reducers and everything. So, yeah, we're 1-1, but hopefully we can play against something that isn't the blue artifact deck. Let's go to round 3. This hand is very slow. We need some fast mana. Let's mulligan. Alright. We can do some stuff here. We'll keep this. I guess we're probably pitching the Gardens here. Let's see if this Chalice is going to be good. Oh, no. Another Chalice deck. Sure. We'll play this out. We'll play this on 0. We'll deploy this Grim Monolith for next turn. And we'll see where it takes us. I'm not sure what flavour of Chalice deck our opponent is. Okay, I'm thinking they're somewhere in the red-white initiative spectrum. Mycosynth Gardens. Is that a helpful one for us? Not really. So I think we are going to deploy this guy. And we'll play our Cloudpost out. I would like to find some more business. A lot of our deck is mana, though, so we can run into that problem. And we are just entirely at the mercy of whatever comes off the top of our deck. Cavern of Souls, naming human, I assume. We get ourselves a little Seasoned Dungeoneer, perhaps? No, they can't cast that because they need another mana for it. So it's going to be a 3-drop here. Oh, just a Chalice on 2, sure. We've gone past casting 2-drops. I guess we could have things like spheres, but a Tangle Wire, you say? Alright, let's beat them down with a little golem. A big old chunk of life, especially when they got an Ancient Tomb eating away at them. Alright, this taps for 2, this taps for 1. We don't even need to use our Ancient Tomb mana. Let's get a Tangle Wire. So they can tap their 2 Chalices. But they are losing 2 lands here, and their spells do cost 1 more. So we are going to be jamming another Lodestone Golem down their throat pretty soon. Alright, didn't have another land, which is nice for us. So we put this one on the bottom, so the fading resolves first. Draw for turn. A Lodestone Golem, okay. Don't mind if I do. We'll jam this one first. Just taps for 3 now. Here comes a Lodestone Golem. Is that good enough, opponent? Ah, they're doing a Solitude now. Sure, what do they pitch? A Seasoned Dungeoneer, right. So next turn, we are making another one using our Mycosynth Gardens. Opponent taps down 2 Chalices and one of their lands. A Fury. This is annoying in the fact that we don't get to copy our Lodestone Golem now. And we are just trying to find some business. What do they pitch to this? Caves of Chaos of Interest, sure. This kind of unlocks them a little bit as well. So we don't have any taxing effects now. Tap down our 2 things we don't care about. Crystalline Giant. Let's make this guy. Let's make this and copy our Crystalline Giant. Then we'll go to our combat step and they both get a random ability. So we got here Trample and Death Touch. Alright. Tap down your 2 Chalices. So Tangle Wire is officially not doing anything right now. But we're ahead on board. Got a lot of life to work with. Right, they're scooping it up. Excellent. So our opponent is a Chalice deck. I think that means we want these welding jars instead. And we'll leave it at that. I think being able to save like our Lodestone Golem from a Fury or combat or whatever is going to be quite useful. Crystalline Giant, not necessarily the best creature ever, but it does enough, right? What does this hand do? Sphere of Resistance with 2 welding jars. And then where do we go? We need to find another land. We certainly have a lot of lands in our deck. Are we allowed to keep this one? If we find a soul land, it's really good. If we don't find a soul land, we can't really do anything. So I guess we should mulligan this. Yeah. This looks alright. Keep this. One of these has got to go back. I think it might be... So this is 1, 2... So on turn 2, we have 1, 2, 3 mana. And then we go up to 4, 5. And we're still not at 6. So maybe the God-Pharaoh statue needs to go. We're a little bit all in on the Giant. Pretty cold to white removal on it, but we're alright versus red removal. We started with a City of Traitors. They're going to make a 1-drop on turn... a 4-drop on turn 1. We just don't beat Seasoned Engineer on turn 1 most of the time. Card's too good. Magus of the Moon. Alright. I don't hate that one. I guess we'll play a welding jar. Our opponent's only got 2 cards left in hand now, so they were kind of all on this Magus doing stuff. But we don't really need all the big mana. It helps us out. It certainly speeds up what we're doing, but it's not something we can't win through because we're just paying colorless costs. We're not paying the the specific colorless mana. They're all mountains, so let's just keep jamming. I'd like to keep the Glimmerpost back since it has a triggered ability. So if we end up trading with this Magus of the Moon in combat, we can get some life back. Alright, they've got 1 card in hand. Haven't deployed anything yet. Feels like there's a hard cast Solitude in our future here. Play the lad. Yep, here comes the Solitude. Yep, alright. We lose our little Giant. We'll never find out what ability it would have got. We can't regenerate from that because it's exile. So we crack from these boys. Ugin the Ineffable. You're going to be a bit slow, aren't you? You're going to be a lot slow. So we take 5 and then 5. So if they don't have any follow-up, we do get to deploy the Ugin and start making some guys that can block here. Same in Spirit Guide. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we do have one more turn after this turn. Karn the Great Creator. Okay. Let's have a Karn. If we minus... we have to minus here. And then what are we getting? Like, it probably has to be the Ensnaring Bridge to give us a chance to survive. But it's going to be a bit of a tall order because our opponent's got 2 power guys, which is really annoying. So if they attack us with everything, then they can just flip through a 2 power guy quite easily. Alright, that's a bit of a mistake, I think. Because we might be able to empty some more cards from our hand here. Or not, I guess. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we can play an Ugin. I think we have to play an Ugin here. We have to kill the Solitude. So this buys us a turn because they didn't attack us with everything. Alright, they're buying us a bit more life here. I don't hate that. Do we get to turn the corner in a second? Our opponent's got a lot of life. Simmon Spirit Guide's a bit awkward for us. We can play at our hand though, so we might be alright. An Ancient Tomb. It's a mountain. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. Alright. We're hiding behind our bridge with a welding jar. If our opponent gets the initiative, they can just rattle through till they trap us to death. If we can answer the Magus. This feels like a Caves of Chaos Adventure maybe. Another Spirit Guide, sure. Karn the Great Creator. Okay. Don't hate this as a draw. We want to play our land out before we minus here. So I think we just get the Lattice. So we have to fade one more turn, then we can lock our opponent out to a degree. If our opponent plays an initiative creature this turn, I think we lose the game. If they don't, then we're alright. They would have cast one last turn if they had one. Alright, we got the scoop. Excellent. I told you we'd rattle through these games pretty sharpish. Yeah, we assembled the lock. And here we are. So we're 2-1. Let's go to round 4. We're on the draw for round 4 against I Hate Narset. It's a name we can all get behind, right? Our opening hand doesn't have enough mana, so we're going to mulligan. Alright, we'll keep this. I think, given this situation, we're going to put back the Glimmerpost so we can do turn 1 sphere, turn 2 second sphere using the Mycosynth Gardens. Or we could be doing some sort of Chalice line. So let's try this. Our opponent mulliganing to 5 so far. They mulliganed to 4. Alright, I kind of wish I was on the play here. You could just drop a Chalice for 0. Sphere of Resistance, untap Sphere of Resistance. Untap Wasteland our opponent. That would be the dream. Interesting. A polluted delta. I think this means we're supposed to Chalice this turn. Maybe our opponent's a Doomsday deck. Alright, they've scooped to the Chalice. Now, our deck doesn't really sideboard very much, so we're just going to run it right back again. We don't know anything about our opponent's deck other than they mulliganed a lot and had a blue-black fetch. Now that could mean Reanimator, but why would they have mulliganed to that hand that had no turn 1 play? They didn't even entomb in response unless their other card was Reanimate. Then maybe they would scoop to that. Because there's no point trying to... ooh, what does this sound? Yeah, this hand's pretty tasty. I'll keep this one. Yeah, so there's no point them showing us what deck they're on if they don't think they can beat that Chalice. Underground Sea. Ponder. Okay, this feels like Doomsday. It's the vibe I'm getting. A Blast Zone. Right, we're just going to jam the Chalice here. Now I can have a Daze, they can have a Force of Will. Alright, we're in. This doesn't stop them winning with Doomsday by any stretch of the imagination. An Urza's Saga. Okay, it feels more like Cephalid Breakfast now, maybe? This is like a good time to... We can play around Daze if we use the Ancient Tomb. I think we're supposed to do that. So this will stop them getting any value out of their Saga if it resolves. Petty Theft. Very rude. Alright. They got a land for their Saga? They do. Does put us in an interesting spot of what we're supposed to do now, though. So we could jam this Lodestone Golem. Try and mess with our opponent that way. It doesn't play around the Daze. Tangle Wire here will tap down all of their permanents. They'll make a construct in response. And then we'll tap down on our permanents. And then that's not really going to get us anywhere. I think we are playing the Golem here. Now, it won't work against a Daze. But if they Force of Will, they're always going to Force of Will something. So our creature will be a reasonable size here. Now, they should be able to produce a 3/3 Saga. But this should mean that our opponent can't combo off this turn. Actually, no, they probably can, right? They play the Illusionist here. And then just equip the Shuko over and over again. And then they have the 1 mana for the Dread Return. Yeah, I think they've probably got us here. There's the Shuko. Alright, equipping it to this guy. That doesn't necessarily mean anything. That might just mean they're attacking first. If they have the Dread Return in hand, though, then they can't Cabal Therapy it away. So that's one thing that we can possibly get some joy from. I'm going to bash for 3. Yeah, we're going to take it. So let that colourless mana burn off. Interesting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 mana we can deploy here if we want it. I think step 1 we're going to go to attacks. So I think we're deploying this Tangle Wire. We could deploy the Crystalline Giant, but I think the Tangle Wire is going to stop our opponent from winning the game. Annoying that we got the disappearing land problem here, but... Now, are we deploying a Tangle Wire? That will tap down 1, 2... It will tap down all of our opponent's permanents. And then we'll tap down these 2 and one other thing. Then we can deploy our Crystalline Giant. And then turn after we can hold up Blast Zone, perhaps. Good old Tangle Wire. Excuse me. God-Pharaoh statue. That's a card, isn't it? Then we go to attacks first. With this, gain a little bit of life. We should have played this Crystalline Giant pre-combat. That was an error. I'm very sorry about that. Because now we miss one thing on it. Not used to playing with the old Crystalline Giants, as it turns out. So our opponent loses 3 permanents this turn to the Tangle Wire, which means they shouldn't be able to combo us. Then we can untap and hold up Blast Zone to blow up the Shuko, if that's the thing we need to do. Alright. Our opponent's going to clean up. They're going to discard the Dread Return here. I suspect that might be what's happening. No, it was the Cabal Therapy. Alright. So this time the Tangle Wire doesn't impact us at all, because it just taps these 2 things that don't need to be untapped. A Sphere of Resistance. I don't hate this one. Alright, so we will play out our land. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 mana. So we deploy this guy first, and then the sphere. And then our opponent scoops it up. Crystalline Giant, winning the day. Yeah, seems pretty good. We're just cruising through this league. Let's go to the final round. Alright, we're on the draw for the final round. We don't have any fast mana. I think I'm going to ship this one. Alright, this one looks a lot better. We'll keep this. Do we need double Chalice? Probably not. Let's send the Chalice back. A Misty Rainforest deck. This feels like a Chalice on one type affair. Oh, an Underground Sea. Are we getting Doomsdayed? We're getting Thoughts. Okay, probably going to lose the Chalice here. It just means we're not really doing anything. We could Wasteland them, though. To the Chalice. Karn the Great Creator. I think we just Wasteland them. And move on with our lives. And hopefully our opponent really needed that land. Cycling. Alright. Could still be Death Shadow, but I suspect Doomsday. Oh, yes. We got him. Ladies and gentlemen, we got him. Grim Monolith. You can't daze it. You have to Force of Will it or nothing here. Force of Will, pitching daze. Sure. We do have a Wasteland when we need one. Now, our opponent might have a Wasteland in their hand. Nope. A Sphere of Resistance, you say? Don't mind if I do. No spells for you, opponent. We got another Wasteland as well. Watery Grave. Tapped. Alright. Goodbye, enemy land. We need a soul land to actually deploy one of our things because our own sphere is hampering us a little bit. But we're keeping our opponent off of spells here. And off of lands. So good. Alright. This does hurt our Karn in terms of being able to cast it, but it just means that our opponent is not going to be able to cast any spells until they have 3 lands in play. And by that time, they will die to our guy. I guess they can have a Snuff Out. So they can cast a Snuff Out for 2 mana. But yeah, there we go. In the bin with you. Excellent. Again, we are not sideboarding here. We're just going to run it back because our deck feels pretty good in this sort of matchup, I think. So let's go. We have a Chalice. We can't deploy it early. I think we need to mulligan this. No soul lands. What are we playing at? Let's mulligan. Alright, this is the best one so far. We'll keep this one. I like Wasteland. Not big on Ghost Quarter. But I don't hate it. I guess the Thespian stage can go. Kind of want the Karn so we've got something to do with our mana. Maybe it is the Ghost Quarter that goes. We just rely on drawing another land at some point soon. Sure, we'll give that a go. Wish this was an Ancient Tomb so badly though. You can get Thought Seized? Yep. We might not win this one. They took the Chalice. As expected. Are we just going to run back the Wasteland play again or not? That's a tough call, isn't it? I think I'm going to try and jam this Grim Monolith. Right. We will not pay for this daze. I don't think I'm going to be able to Wasteland my opponent into the dirt 2 games in a row. And we're going to need that mana to cast some spells soon. We'd like to draw a 3-drop here. Alright, we're going to lose our Karn. Okay. We feel very far behind now. An Ancient Tomb. I think we're just supposed to pass. They can deploy Death Shadow now. If it turns out our opponent didn't have a second land this whole time and I could have just Wasteland them, then I feel a little bit sad. There we go, there's the second one. Coming into play tapped. Let's draw some business. Any business. It's not really very business-like, is it? As ugly as this is. I think we're supposed to start playing out our lands now. This is kind of the downside of City of Traitors. You don't get soul lands without drawbacks. That's quite the drawback. There are plenty of land to play through a Tabernacle. I imagine the threat they're working towards is Murktide, because they would have cast it otherwise. Alright, we're going to jam ourselves a Sphere and see if this sticks. We've got the mana to play around a daze, so it has to be a Force of Will or double daze. Alright. So if they've got a fetch land here, they can deploy a Murktide. A Wasteland. Are we losing our Ancient Tomb? Is that the game you want to play, opponent? Alright, let's jam ourselves a Chalice of the Void. Hold on, we want to play a land out first, don't we, here? So we can play around days, if needs be. Have to play around our own sphere. Don't know what's in our opponent's hand. They could have cast a Murktide last turn, right? No, it had to be a fetch land, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. No, they could have cast it last turn. Breeding Pool. Okay. Overgrown Tomb. So our opponent can't play Death Shadows because of our Chalice. And here's the... Oh, it's a Grief. Yeah, sure. Be my guest. Alright, so we're going to need something here. Glimmerpost. How useful is Glimmerpost? We just jam this, gain a little bit of life. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4. Maybe we're supposed to Wasteland our opponent's Wasteland, but if our opponent is taking themselves off of mana sources, I don't hate that for us. Okay, Wasteland on the tomb. Sure. We've got a lot of life to work with here, so maybe we can draw into some action. They know we've got Tabernacle, so they're not really incentivized to deploy more threats. Oh, okay. They're just going to deploy them and then pay for them and then kill us. Fair enough, opponent. Mycosynth Gardens. I don't think that's going to help us out right now, is it? Let's deploy this Tabernacle. So our opponent will kill us next turn. So they bash us for 9 and then they kill us off. Then we get a game 3 being on the play. And hopefully we won't mulligan to 5. So we're looking at something like Ugin here. No, we can't even cast the Ugin, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This doesn't tap for mana. No, we're just dead. Let's go to the final game of the league. I think we're fine with what we've got here. Let's just try and make a Chalice for 1 on the play and completely shut our opponent down. No Chalice. But we got a lot of stuff. I think I'm going to keep this still. Opponent's mulligan to 6. Powder Keg is going to be their go-to answer for taking out multiple artifacts, and that's not really going to hamper us at all. Right, we'll start off with an Ancient Tomb and pass. There's a Watery Grave. We're getting Thoughtseized? We are getting Thoughtseized. Let's see what they take. We don't really want to cast the Lodestone Golem next turn because that's into a daze, so we can play the Ancient Tomb and play a Lodestone Golem, play a Crystalline Giant around daze. And that's certainly going to be something. What do you think, opponent? Tangle Wire, maybe? Lodestone Golem? I don't think they're going to take the Giant. If they take the Giant, it makes me think they have daze, though. And they want us to play into the daze with the Lodestone Golem. Going for the Tangle Wire. Right. Interesting. Okay, we'll deploy the Giant, playing around daze. What ability do we get? Vigilance. That's not unhelpful. Trample is probably the worst one. If they're on Grief, they're probably not on Baleful Strix as well. So, okay. Karn the Great Creator. I think we are incentivized to attack first. Ooh, Hexproof is good. That's certainly one of the better ones. And I think we'll play out this Glimmerpost. Gain a tiny bit of life. Try for this guy. Oh, we're in. Alright. Now we can just deploy a Tangle Wire next turn, shut our opponent down, and just beat them down over the course of 2 turns. It's a strategy. They could have Hurkyl's Recall here. That's one thing I'm a little bit worried about. But we can't really do much about that. We might be incentivized to Karn and get a Tormod's Crypt soon just to stop them from playing Murktide Regent because that will outclass our creatures. Unless we can get First Strike and Death Touch on our Crystalline Giant, which will happen eventually, but our opponent will probably be dead before that's a thing that happens. A Windswept Heath, yep. We've seen the green splash. I guess they could have some really annoying green splash here. Alright. I'm going to go to attacks here. What are we getting this time? Flying. Sure. Let's bash. And we'll drop this City of Traitors. 2, 4, 6, 7. So we can deploy this guy. Would you like to not cast any spells ever again? I feel like I'm about to get Hurkyl's Recalled. I can't cast it now though, so... Yeah, I think our opponent is dead. Very dead. That's an island. GG from the opponent. Alright, so we go on a 4-1. Yeah, 4-1. Deck felt pretty good. Let's talk about the deck, really. So, the fundamental things of this deck are just good, right? We can stop our opponent being able to cast their things. Whether that's 0 drops or 1 drops or whatever. Considering how lean the Legacy format is, it means that things like Sphere of Resistance can really mess up what your opponent's doing. I know there's a very famous lands player at the moment who's running 4 Sphere of Resistance in their lands deck because it's so good right now, and we just sort of got more of that effect. I do like Mycosynth Gardens that has more copies of Sphere of Resistance. I did like that one game where we used our Mycosynth Gardens to copy a Chalice of the Void, so we had 1 on 0 and 1 on 1. That was quite fun. We never got to Crucible someone out, but we didn't really need to. The one matchup we lost was against the mono blue artifact deck, the 8 cast, and the problem with that is affinity is inherently good against what we're doing, which is pretty awkward. And they can spam a load of permanents as well, which gets around Tangle Wire, which is another issue. So that was always going to be a tough one. Now Karn is pretty good there, but most of the time they're just spamming out stuff. So it's not really the end of the world. By the time we get to play the Karn, they've already got their value of having loads of stuff, their affinity or whatever. So that's, yeah. The God-Pharaoh statue did win us a game, so that's pretty cool. The Ugin was alright. Helped us turn the corner against the prison deck, the initiative prison deck. That was good. And yeah, I think this deck is totally fine, to be honest. We did get a bit lucky. We didn't play against any decks running Seeds of Innocence or Meltdown, which can be problematic for us. Meltdown, actually, that's not even true in a lot of ways, is it, if you think about it? Because Meltdown has to be for quite a big number to kill all of our stuff. And Seeds of Innocence is a 3-mana spell that, if we care about what it's doing, it's probably going to be a 4 or a 5-mana spell. So the only thing that we're really losing there are chalices most of the time from the Meltdowns. So yeah, this deck's actually quite resilient to some of the artifact hate, and Blood Moon doesn't really stop us either, because we're not like a Saga deck or anything. Yeah, this deck actually feels pretty good. Obviously, we need to talk about the elephant in the room that is Crystalline Giant. So, is this card good? No. But, was it doing the role we needed it to do? Yes, frankly. We needed another 3-drop, right? So, we have Soul Land into a non-Soul Land gives us 3 mana. And Tangle Wire isn't always something we want to jump down. And if we just put the Crystalline Giant, it's just a threat that does its little thing. It kind of ticks away when the game's kind of locked and going really slowly because of all the prison pieces. It just does what it needs to do, I think. If I was to play this deck again, what would I change? Honestly, it's hard to say. I think the deck is pretty close to what it should be, to be honest. I don't even think I would take out the Crystalline Giants. There's possibly an argument for Thorn of Amethyst to come in here as well. But I don't even think that's necessarily necessary, to be honest. I think this deck is fine as is. Now, you're going to have some matchups that are a little bit trickier. So, decks that are happy to deploy a bunch of lands. I think some of the control decks might prove troublesome for us, especially like the blue-white base ones, because our Wastelands won't really affect them. They're going to have a decent chunk of removal for stuff that we're doing. If we don't get in at them quick enough, then we won't really get to do anything. And they could deploy things at instant speed, like removal and Snapcaster, to play around the Tangle Wires. So I think that's probably where you're going to come a little bit unstuck. I think we're pretty reasonable against combo, though, because like Chalice and Sphere are pretty useful cards. As for our sideboard, the welding jars, like we basically just didn't board cards for the entire league, apart from that one time we boarded in welding jars because our chalices were bad. Excuse me. I think for the most part, you're not really going to want to change anything this deck does. Either the things your deck does are going to be really good, or so bad that you can't fix it from the sideboard, right? The only thing that's going to have a little bit of questionable value is Chalice of the Void. Now, against Initiative, I would play Chalice of the Void on the play, but not on the draw. On the play, you put it on 0. On the draw, you board it out, which is why we board in the welding jars for that game. Is there something else we could play instead? Dismember, maybe? I don't know. I'm not a big fan of losing a bunch of life with that. So I honestly don't know what else we're supposed to have here. A Meekstone is kind of an interesting idea for the Karn package, because it's a cheaper version of Ensnaring Bridge a lot of the time. And I don't think we need the second God-Pharaoh statue. So this could be a Meekstone, or it could be another thing that we can sub in instead of the chalices. Yeah, I don't really think I've got anything else to say about this deck. It felt pretty smooth. The one round we lost was a 1-2, so we were pretty close to getting there. With slightly different situations, I think we would have got there. So pretty close to a trophy with this deck. I would happily run it back. This deck was quite fun to play, and it felt pretty strong. I guess you could argue that maybe there's a 2-mana threat that you could play, like that guy that gets bigger whenever you cast an artifact. But we're not casting that many artifacts, so it's probably not that deck either. So yeah, I think this deck is fine where it's at, and I'm going to be done for the day. I keep coughing, so I need to go to bed, I think. So, I hope you enjoyed this one. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe. And why not have your donation deck played on the channel like this one was played? Contact me via the Discord below. And check out the Patreon as well if you've got some time. Thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.